So I'm Jody Steele. I'm the Director of Distance Education at Fresno City College, and was a history professor for 17 years down at Merced College. I want to welcome you all here. With that introduction, you know that I'm not Sue Yang. Oh, sorry, buddy. I'm not Sue Yang. Our instructional designer, she's actually out sick today. And so positive vibes to wish her well. She felt really, really bad that she couldn't present today, but I told her, don't worry, we've got it covered. Thank you, Hudson. So joining me today is Jason Thomas and also Carolyn Deanda. Is Carolyn on the call? Jason,
yeah, we're both here. We're just not pinned.
Okay. They're going to be helping out today to monitor the chat and to also interject perhaps some of their examples, time permitting. So I'm not going to be dishonest with you. I'm going to tell you that I haven't run through this presentation yet. It's not difficult to wing it. It's not what I'm comfortable with, but you probably all know that the perspiration factor goes up when you're doing something for the first time, including using new technology or meeting a class for the first time. So I'm sure with that related sense that we're going to have a really good time in this session. So again, thank you all for joining, and thank you for teaching our students and giving them so much of yourselves in fall, and here you are going into spring with that same commitment. It's admirable. We really are testing ourselves, aren't we? But at least we do have a job. It doesn't feel like a job most of the time, but we have a job that enables us to recognize our purpose, to teach and inspire students with our discipline expertise. If only that technology wouldn't get in the way, huh? Dang technology. Yeah. Well, we're going to help support you today with this session on not only building community in the virtual environment, but we're going to be focusing on you, the instructor, because you are the center, aren't you? You are the center of your community in your virtual classroom. So hopefully you'll walk away with a few things to think about trying this semester, and also inspiring some other explorations in spring. We do have a lot of planned workshops for you as part of our boot camp, where we have exercises. If you didn't get a chance to exercise in the fall, we're here to pump you up in the spring. I love analogies and themes and all that stuff, so just bear with me. So we're here to support you and not overwhelm you. That's really our intention, but that is difficult at times when we're learning something so new. So to get this started, I want to set up this environment for you and let you know that this session is being recorded. So you can make notes, or you can actively write down every word I'm saying, or you can just revisit the slides later. Totally up to you. We will be using the chat for questions. Jason and Carolyn are going to help monitor the chat. And then we're going to take that transcript and look for ways that we can continue to support you this semester. Obviously, we can't cover everything in this short period of time, and so it's not going to be a fire hose treatment. If you've been to any of our workshops, you know that we design them intentionally with outcomes, practices, and then things to think about and build upon for later. So we're really looking at fostering a community of engaged learners in a virtual environment. And that means being an engaged instructor too, doesn't it? So when you look at effective teaching and learning and think about who's responsible for learning, who's responsible for learning, it's really both of us, isn't it? Isn't it really the teacher and the student? It's a shared activity. And in doing that, we can recognize that in the virtual environment, there are things that we can do that create an atmosphere of a community of practice of learners. And so that we can all feel like we are a part of the same community, that we're all going in the same direction together. That might sound a bit contradictory to the isolated environment that we often feel ourselves in as both teachers and learners, but we can bridge those gaps. We can make those connections to our students in a virtual environment, but it doesn't happen naturally, and it doesn't happen through the same ways that we may have been so successful face-to-face. It really is, and I'm probably not telling you anything you don't know now, it's really significantly different than a face-to-face environment. So in creating this community of teaching and learning and practice, it means being present. And sometimes that is through text, meaning, words, typing, that sort of thing. But sometimes it's also through oral presentation. If you have any synchronous parts of your courses, or it's all synchronous, and even if it's asynchronous, you can interject your voice, right, in feedback and grading and having presentations and things of that nature. So we're going to look at building this community and implementing it in Canvas. And I apologize if some of you were in the last, the 11 o'clock session. Some of this will be a little bit familiar, but that's okay. They say that it takes 3 times to be exposed to something before you remember it. So here's your second, if you were in the 11. So when you have a virtual environment, for people to feel comfortable, it helps if they know what to expect. And I'm sure that you can relate to this as both a teacher and a learner, right? We often learn from folks who present well and support us. And then we're also skilled to learn from those presentations or activities that we didn't enjoy. So for the sake of this presentation, I'd like you to think about your audience. Right? I'm thinking about you as my audience. And if I was doing this presentation in the fall, I would probably assume that many of you didn't know how to use Zoom, right? But I'm sorry, am I not sharing my slides? Am I sharing my slides?
Yes,
You
your slides are showing.
I can see them.
Okay, thank you. But right now, I am going to assume that you all have used Zoom, love it or hate it, right? It's part of your dialogue now. Can you use the reaction button that you'll find down here, and thumbs up or thumbs down if you don't feel you're comfortable with Zoom? Are you comfortable with Zoom? Oh, even physical thumbs up. I love that because I can see a lot of you. Thank you. Yeah, so in fall, it might not have been the same, right? But this semester, I can make that assumption. Do you think that we can make that same assumption about our students? Kind of. But wouldn't it be good to prepare them and make them feel comfortable to participate in the course, right? So even though you all know this, I'm going to get us all to the same starting line and share the norms for this instruction. Setting norms is really helpful to make people feel comfortable and to be a part of a community of learning. It helps to make you comfortable enough to engage in the environment. So I'm going to share with you the norms that when you're not speaking, to mute your line, and that's when you see the red microphone by your name. And in the last group, I shared with them the quick, like walkie-talkie shortcut to speak. If you hold your space bar down, it will enable your microphone for the time that you have it pressed. So go ahead and try it.
Nice trick.
Oh, yeah.
Hello.
Thanks.
Good.
Lunch was
Learn
great.
something new
What's
every
up?
day.
What's up?
Hello.
Love learning new stuff.
Hello.
Hello. That was nice.
Don't you know me, Jody?
Learn something new
All
every
right.
day.
So now you all know how to do that very quickly. I also want to encourage you, and you should for your students, to rename yourself. Were you in a meeting before you knew how to do that and you saw people who had really fun like shortcut names, or their department was on there or something? Geez, how'd they do that? And so encourage your students that if they have a preferred name, that they want shown on the screen, then show them that by clicking on participants and themselves, they can edit their name. If you want to give parameters for that, you can, or you can trust your students that they'll choose what they really want to be known by. In my case, my legal name is Jodette. Yeah, I know, Carl, right? That's exactly how I felt. But my name Jodette was given to me by my mom, my 20-year-old mother, because she saw a belly dancer article in the newspaper, and it was Jodette's belly dancing studio. Still is in business in Sacramento, by the way. So that's where Jodette came from. But I like to go by Jody, and I would just shudder whenever, when I was in college, when I could tell they were getting to my name and they were gonna say Jodette. I'm like, oh, let me get you. I think I'm next. And then I tell them what I prefer my name to be. So we can give that same kind of respect to our students and have them choose the name that they prefer to be called. We can also show them how to raise their hands. Most of you know how to do that, but you could show them how to go to the participant window and raise their hand and set the expectations for using that. Also for using the chat feature. And you know that, well, I'm assuming you know, see, I'm violating what I just said. When you set up your Zoom, you can enable or disable certain functions. If you don't want to have students doing private chat with each other, you can disable that. You can also keep it open and tell them that it's recorded and that you'll be scanning it after. I don't think you can actually do that, but it's worth saying. But make sure to create an environment where students do feel comfortable to use chat. Not everybody is comfortable pushing the space bar and answering. Not everybody can think as quickly as you do to give an answer to a question. So if you have students be able to use either chat or speak, encourage them, give them time to think. Then you're creating a community that recognizes the differences amongst students and brings that level of comfort. Also speak clearly. There's nothing up there. That's my dog, sorry. And then tell your students that if you use breakout rooms, that when a breakout room presents itself on their screen, they're invited to go to click the attend, and then give them an understanding, a comfort level to know what that means. How many of you have been sent to a breakout room before? Gosh, it sounds like I'm saying if you've been punished. Thumbs up, reactions, breakout room. been sent to one? Most of you. How many of you have set up a breakout room? Do you think there'd be some anxiety doing that? The perspiration factor I talked about. Yeah, right, Leanne. I still remember the first time I went into a breakout room, and I felt like I was being sent into an abyss. I didn't know how I was going to get back. And then once we got in there, I didn't know what we were supposed to do. So a breakout room can either enhance a sense of belonging, or you can really throw your students for a loop. And when they come back, they won't participate because they don't have the trust to do so, and they're not prepared. So if you're going to do breakout rooms, it's really best to set up some parameters and maybe even just try it out, low stakes. Hey, as an icebreaker, I'm going to send you out to breakout rooms and I don't know, share your favorite flavor of ice cream. It can be sorbet if there's dairy allergy. But and then have them come back. Assign a reporter and a timekeeper. And the norms for that could be that the timekeeper also ensures that everybody gets to speak. That because everybody is important and valued. And then also have a reporter that when you come back, you have somebody who has either volunteered or been voluntold that they're going to report on the favorite flavors of ice cream in the breakout. So doing those things and building trust and a sense of community with you at the place of facilitation is really critical to the success of learning. And so when you're building the sense of community, make sure to strategically focus on being present, being open, being curious, and encourage your students to be curious as well. When you signed up for this session, clearly there was something that attracted you to the session, something that you hope to learn. If you could just take a moment to write down or type it in your phone, what your purpose for attending this particular session was or is. And so keeping that in mind, when we're done, I want you to reflect on if that expectation or purpose was met. So that's giving you the responsibility of that learning, but I'm also going to do my part as well because we're in this together. There's a study, this is Sue Yang presented or prepared this, this citation that this study by Shana Smith, Yeagers, etc., found that the level of interpersonal interaction in a course was the biggest predictor of student grades. So that doesn't indicate that it's because the instructor is super smart, right? It's a part of the relationship between instructor and student, but also among students, right? To be a part of that community of engaged teaching and learning. So when you start your courses on Monday, can you share in the chat how you might or how you have set up this community of trust or engagement for your students as you're going forward in the semester? How do how do you harness that excitement that the students bring and create an environment of trust? What do you do? Oh, cool. Welcome video. Flipgrid. Oh, cocktail hour. You know, I actually had a vendor. There's lots of predatory vendors right now. Very creative. Has invited potential customers to a whiskey tasting. And so if you sign up, they'll send you a couple of, I guess, whiskeys to try, and they're going to do that virtually. That was the most creative one I've seen. I'm not attending, by the way, but yeah, breakouts for sure. Welcome letter, welcome notice. I noticed somebody said Flipgrid in here. Bethany. Oh, bit emoji, that's great. So somebody who has used Flipgrid to foster a community of engaged learners. Can you give us an example what you have students do with that? You can unmute yourself. Sorry. Probably looking to type super fast. Oh, nobody's going to offer up what they do for, yeah, push the space bar. Jason, have you used Flipgrid?
I haven't used Flipgrid before, but I do have an idea that I've seen before that I really enjoy. And so one thing that I've seen an instructor do, and is one that I actually talk about in our boot camp workshops, is they use Flipgrid and they ask their students, wherever their hometown is or wherever their favorite town is, act like that you are introducing them to your favorite restaurants and tell them where around town that you would like them to take. One thing that's actually pretty incredible right now is that you have no idea where our students are taking our classes from. We have a lot of students that are taking our classes totally outside of Fresno. For example, over the summer, I had a student that was taking my microbiology course from Dubai. And so it is really interesting. And it gets the students to tell a little bit about themselves, to share, kind of humanizing the class a little bit, to get to know about where they're coming from and what some of their favorite places are.
Yeah, yeah, that's fantastic. So, and that's not about microbiology, right? I mean,
Right.
that's about, you know,
we just want to get to know each other first. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So if you don't know, I mentioned Flipgrid because we recently, like last week, added it to Canvas. And notice that we're talking about a tool to fit a purpose. So the purpose is to foster a community of engagement amongst the learners. And Flipgrid is a collaborative tool that can be used. So after you use it for, you've decided to use it for a purpose, then you can talk about how cool it is. But adopting technology for technology's sake, that's exhausting, isn't it? It's very exhausting. So, so we do have Flipgrid available, and it doesn't always have to be a topic that's related to the class, right? Just kind of let people feel more relaxed in a trusted environment. And it's that interaction, that interpersonal interaction that fosters learning. I want to share with you this community of inquiry, which I did mention in the last, the 11 o'clock hour. And you'll notice that I also told you that you would see it again. I anticipate that you'll see it again because it is a cornerstone of the @1 courses towards DE certification. Was this in our basic training too, Jason? Do you remember this? Or am I thinking about the second one?
I think it's in the second session.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's in the first one.
So this community of inquiry is is the outcome of evidence-based learning by Garrison, Anderson, Archer from 1999. So it does have staying power. Lots of evidence-based research is grounded in the community of inquiry. So just like anything else that we may study and in your discipline expertise, teaching and learning in the online environment is also a subcategory of expertise. Adding to this particular graphic is the equity presence as well. As I said, this was in 1999 for Garrison. And then it's been adapted by Harrison Wood. And if you recall them coming to speak at Convocation, if you were here a couple of years ago, they really talked about the equity presence and how important it was to be aware and also integrate elements of equity and be mindful. We've had some sessions in Flex too that have been exclusively focused on equity mindedness and in the syllabus and all those things. But here, just as a snapshot, the community of inquiry looks at these different bubbles of presence that are most conducive to learning. So adult learning theory. We know that learning is not a passive exercise, if only, right? But we're not quite that kind of plug in and learn. But that wouldn't be as exciting anyway, because learning is fun. Learning is intoxicating. That's why we're all in this business, have these jobs, right? Hopefully it doesn't feel like a job. Most of the time it doesn't to me either, but it is what we do. We are lifelong learners. Most of you did not choose to learn about pedagogy and teaching online, but yeah, here we are. Surprise! So for effective learning to happen in any modality, you need the social presence, which is where that sense of community, belongingness, respect, appreciation, value, all of those things are in the social presence. You also have the cognitive presence, and that is obviously about learning the discipline. You have the teaching presence here that you all are masters of. But notice how there's some overlapping here, setting the climate, supporting discourse, selecting the content, and then all of those overlap into educational experience. And this middle one here is for both the instructor and the student, our educational experience. And for equity mindedness, in looking at that experience, it's recognizing that not everybody has the same experience coming to us at Fresno City College. There may have been some deficits, some low or high expectations, things that affect our ability to engage in the content and to ultimately learn. If there is a safe environment where all of these areas of the community of inquiry are supported, then you can have effective learning taking place. Now, this isn't just something that I'm telling you based off of my educational experience. This is what I've done. This is how it works for me. But it's founded in evidence-based research that gives us the confidence that the things that we're talking about exploring are grounded, not just in theory, but in practice. Oh, goodness. My dog's really at it today. In that middle portion, and when we think about the importance of establishing a community, is a student's self-efficacy. That's in this educational experience as a student. And self-efficacy is according to, I have a couple of citations here for you there. Now they're done. Self-efficacy is your belief in your capacity to be able to learn and to handle the setbacks of learning. Maybe can you think of what it was like when you were first a student, and if you're a first generation college student, what it was like the first time that you went to class, the first time you were on campus, on a campus, and you didn't know where to go, and people were using all these different acronyms. Did you do the FOSFA? Did you, have you been to the DHC over there? Have you, you just assume that people have the same vocabulary knowledge that you do, and that's simply not the case. When students do not feel like they belong to that community, then they tend to fail. So teaching students and empowering their self-efficacy so that they can recognize that if they have a small setback, they still can be successful. Many people, that bucket, especially for first generation students and those who didn't experience a lot of support for education, they look for reasons that they don't belong on campus. And that could be failing a syllabus quiz. It could be being late to class and getting reprimanded for that. So those take tiny pieces of a student's self-efficacy until you build it up to where they can go, okay, well, I'll do better next time. Think about how long it's taken you to get to that point, right? You're going to be teaching online this semester. No, I can't. But you know, as lifelong learners, that you can. You can learn those things. You can accomplish and conquer your fears. You have the capacity to do that. And many of our students do not. So we can help support that by making them feel welcome, being a part of the learning experience and the community that we create for them, that it's a safe space to be wrong, right? It's a safe space to be wrong. So getting them to bounce back, that we are here for them. And they're here for us too. They can be very forgiving when something happens, when we're not used to failing, right? Dang it, I'm used to being so good. But we can bounce back. So Bandura, some of you are in psychology, you probably have heard of Bandura before, but this quote here, I'll give you just a moment to read it, about expectations and failure. I love seeing all your recommendations in the chat. I was just reading those. You know, you've heard that statement, at first you don't succeed, try again. We have to subscribe to that ideology in order to live it. And we usually can do that by being supported by our peers or our family. I've certainly felt that in the last 10 months, being in distance education and COVID. But we learn by failing. But our students may not be able to accept or take that very lightly. And we can confidently say that because many of them are not returning in the spring, that they did not have a good experience in the fall. And so they don't have that self-efficacy to bounce back and come in. And I know many instructors, all of you work so hard to have students feel connected to your class. here are some ways. I'm sorry about my my slides going ahead like that, but there's some ways that we can build self-efficacy for our students, and to have everyone feel like they're a part of this community of learners. And so just have a look at a few of these ideas for your online environment. Is there anything in this list that intrigues you? Do you want to know more about? You can feel free to unmute yourself. I know we're a large group, but I'll take the risk. And if you're not comfortable speaking, you can type in the chat. Is there anything that intrigues you about these ways to build community and to support students' efficacy? Hey, Rhonda.
Hi, can you define a conditional release assignment, please?
Yes. So that is where a student has to demonstrate that they know about that topic before they can move on to the next. In Canvas, you can set a, well, Jason, can you cover that one?
So what you would do is, I believe it's the term that's usually called as mastery paths. And so what it is you would have to complete one assignment to make sure that you have the underlying information, that you already know this underlying information before continuing on to the more difficult topic. And so you have to know, so like for instance, one program that I use in my class, what it does is it has a whole bunch of multiple choice questions. If they get the question wrong, what it will do is it will refer them to the textbook to go review that material, and it won't let them proceed on until they review that material, and they have to answer the question in a different format. And so that way it proves that they actually do have understanding. And so that would be the conditional release. The condition is that you get the question right before it releases the new material.
Right, correct. Does that make sense,
Okay.
Rhonda?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Cool, yeah, you're welcome. Anyone else?
Likewise for that mini assignments that become the cumulative assessment. I understand a mini assignment. I'm having a hard time imagining how that would become a cumulative assessment.
So I can provide an example. It's, you know, if you're working towards a bigger project, and most of you have those, right? Like a capstone or a big project they're working towards, an opportunity to accomplish the mini assignments that work up to there. So perhaps it's collecting a biography first, a list for the bibliography. Maybe it's doing an annotation of that bibliography and they get feedback on that. Maybe it's sharing a rough draft with a peer or something of that nature. So these little chunks that they're doing to work up to the final project is an opportunity for them to correct, modify, and meet the learning outcome or objectives that are what that bigger assignment represents. If we were just to assign our students, right, okay, you're going to write a 5-page paper on the causes of the American Revolution. Okay, go. And it's worth a quarter of your grade. Okay. Well, we're probably going to go to the internet and copy something down because I didn't give them a chance to build up to that. I didn't give them parameters. And so they freak out and feel like they don't know what they're doing because they don't. And that is very difficult to succeed like that.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, thank you, Cynthia.
Jody,
Yeah.
one of the things that I learned early on was to break down the assignments into small assignments. So for instance, in my medical technology class, the final exam has about 180 terms on it that they have to know by heart. They have to be able to write out the definitions of those terms. And when I tell the students on the first day of class, this is what your final is going to be, they panic. They always do. And then I break it down and say, okay, this week we're going to learn these terms. This week we're going to learn these terms. And so I make them into mini assignments so that they can learn the terms week by week and say, okay, for this week you have 10 terms. That means learning 2 terms every day. Who can learn 2 terms every day? And so helping them break down the chunks of material into manageable parts makes it so much easier to do those big assignments.
Right. And what you're demonstrating is exactly what evidence-based research for adult learning has taught us. So it's a lot of times we as instructors will do these things by accident, but we know that they work. But we can also modify and learn from others to create these assignments. And most of the time it's by reflection and examining our content and our assessments. Think about if there's one particular assignment or concept that students in your class or classes have a hard time. Every semester they have a hard time meeting that. They always fail that. I mean, I've heard people say that about their students. So what can we do to break it down into smaller segments to where when it comes to that bridge they can't cross? How can we empower them to get there? There's lots of different ways to do that. And according to the community of inquiry, it's about bringing in all of those different parts and learning more about the pedagogy of teaching online. You all know by now it's not the same as face-to-face. There's more of a facilitation element to it, facilitating students to be comfortable, to want to come to your class, because they're not on campus and have a rigid schedule that they have to follow. And even if they go by that rigid schedule, when students come into class, not all of them are engaged, are they? Passive learning. Well, online, they don't have to be passive learners. We can bring them in to this community where they can learn, demonstrate, and succeed. And there's lots of different streams that we can provide for them to get there, because every student can learn, but they can't with the same assignment, the same expectation. And so that makes it very exciting too. These different suggestions come from Flower Darby. She is one of my very favorites. Her book is not right here. It's probably on my nightstand, but it's Small Teaching in the online environment. But she's got this great article as well. I think it's in the Chronicle of Higher Ed. But Flower Darby just has some wonderful ways to get people to have students feel connected to the online classroom. And so, you know, we'll be exploring more of those ideas too as we invite you to more workshops over the semester. And some of you may decide you want to take part 2 of the certification process. And that one's on, it's called 10-10-10 communication. So it's about the first 10 minutes in your class, the first 10 days, you know, how to set up the conditions for effective teaching and learning. Notice that has nothing to do with your discipline expertise. You are the discipline expert. It's about designing the environment that lets that shine. And so the technology isn't getting in your way.
Jody, can I interject something real quickly? There's a lot of really good comments in the chat. Leanne Bain has mentioned that she heavily scaffolds. And I think that these are all really important points, that it's building towards that cumulative assessment or project, whatever the important frame is.
Very good. Was there a specific example, Carolyn, that you wanted to highlight?
Well, Julie Dana, I think could speak really well to a project that we all got to see recently. Julie, if you'd like to chime in.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So I saw somebody put, I think, Bill, it was you. You can't just say, read the chapter, do the test, do the blah, blah, blah. So I'm coming at it with music, because I not only need them to sing by themselves when they don't want to sing by themselves, they want to sing with their group of people, but they also have to video themselves as well. And so I started out with, telling, okay, here's a song, and I taught them around, and we went, blah, blah, blah. What you saw, what the world needs now, they chunked that. I say, okay, guys, let's work measures 1 through 12. And I take them through a logical phrase, and they would record it. They would put it in we have software in Canvas that we use. And then I'd go in and make sure it was there. They lined it up. They sang with their sections so they could hear one another. And then we would listen to it. And if it was cool, we went to the next. Okay, so on Monday of next week, we want to have this one done. And we'd break up into small groups during class. They could work together in the small sections of their parts. They would do those 12 measures or 15 measures. So that piece, audio wise, wasn't recorded all at once. It was recorded in small chunks where they felt safe enough to go through, and it was short enough for me to give feedback, or their section leader students, because I do a lot of student, mentoring too in the class. And but I started out just going, okay, record this. Here's the music. Let's go. Let's learn, and they were frozen. They couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But when we brought it down into these smaller, more manageable ways, and the other thing is they could see the result of everybody doing that, because now they're able to hear kind of what the product is starting to sound like. And it just made a huge difference. And some of that was me, meeting with my colleagues in the choral world from all over the nation that are teaching like this now. But they also gave me some really good feedback of what worked better for them based on what some of you are doing in your classes. They say, well, so-and-so, Professor Steely is doing this and and so I kind of take those ideas from the kids too, because they know how they learn as well. So just
right. And I think, Julie, what you're demonstrating too is a very equitable cognitive frame. And that is the belief and the action that every student can learn. That going to college isn't required. Those students come to us eager to learn, ready to learn, right? That first day is just so exciting. And how do we keep that momentum? How do we keep that excitement and that thirst going? It has a lot to do with how we treat our students as being part of this experience. And you may be going to some sessions or some workshops on the equity mindedness, that framework. And I hope that, a lot of these things, they seem just so like big thoughts. Well, how do I actually do that? What are some things that I can do that support these frameworks? So it's important to recognize that. Is it are you satisfied, or is someone satisfied with saying, well, 30% will fail anyway? They didn't come into it going, okay, 30% of us are going to fail. It's not going to be me. It's everyone has the ability to learn, but we've got to tap into that. And if you don't have a welcoming environment, it's certainly not conducive to learning. So the equity cognitive frame is that as I was saying, everybody has the capacity to learn. If we just blame and say, okay, well, that 30% is going to fail, well, that really makes it to where we can't do anything, right? That's out of our control. But it really is in our control to bring them in and recognize that we're going to meet them where they're at. And when people say that we're going to meet them where they're at, that's not just one place. Right? There's a lot of starting points. When you look at those assignments too, like the one that Julie was getting an example of, the students didn't know how to use that new software, right? There's a part of teaching them how to use the tool in order to meet the learning objective or the goal. Okay, so if they're using something like Excel even, to assume they all know how to use Excel and impose that sets many students up for failure because the technology gets in the way. But we're here to help you with the design. Again, you guys are the discipline experts, so and we can help with the design and the scaffolding for that. As I was mentioning too, that we tend to accept that we are designing or teaching our courses to the average student. The bell curve, have you heard about the bell curve? I used to be so, I thought that I was doing my job in that first year of teaching when I had a perfect bell curve. And now that I look back on it, I'm like, why did I accept that proportion of the students were meant to fail? And by examining that, I started to make adjustments and start to change that and throw out the bell curve. So there is not just one way. Now it sounds kind of like a lot of work, right? But you'll notice too in Julie's example, she talked about peer-to-peer for students. She talked about facilitating their growth and chunking things to get to a point. Now, some students will just breeze through those chunks, right? But the other students, there's actually no way of knowing that you've carried them along. So just something to think about as you're starting into the semester. You guys are all talking about certification. Look at you, just thirst for knowledge. Thank you for answering those questions, Jason. I think we're almost out of time, but I just want to share with you some of these design templates that Sue created for if you want to move the home that you set up in the fall and move it into a fresh spring shell. We have some templates that will help to design your content to be more easily accessible for students. We heard from students from the fall that said that one of the things that was very difficult for them was not being able to find things in the class. And maybe you've had that happen as well. Like if you've gone to our website. I'm sorry, this is recorded. But you know where you try to find something and by the time you kind of get there, you're like, dang, I'm exhausted. What was I looking for in the first place? So that means that you've expended some of your cognitive load towards just trying to find something before you actually can get involved in it. So for the design of your course, in examining it, maybe there is a way that it could be organized a little more effectively so that a student, when they come in, they don't have to hunt around for where to get started. You know, it's kind of a curious thing when you think about students who come into the physical classroom. Like, everybody knows where to sit, right? They don't go to like the podium and stand there. They know exactly where to sit, facing forward. They know to get out their books already, or their, you know, their computer or their notepad, whatever. They know to write things down that you put on the board. But in the online environment, when they go into your Canvas shell, it's not intuitive. They need to know where to start. Where do I go? What do I do? And so the more that we can set up that design for them, the more they can put that cognitive load to your discipline and focus on the real guts without the technology getting in the way. So one of those things is doing a course tour. And some of you have actually done that for us too. But giving a course tour, showing folks where things are. And that included, like I was talking about, how you show students how to use Zoom, not assuming that they already know how to use it. Here are some of the homepage templates. Oh, this is all of them actually, that Sue has created. They're quite beautiful, I think. I'm super impressed by them. She has a video in there. If you go into the faculty hub, she has a video too on how to use these templates. And we do also have open hours with facilitators that can assist you with applying these. And what they are pages just where you link content that you have in your course. I think. So you've got one that's organized by weekly, one that's organized by module. It just depends on how you want to chunk up your course. You'll notice here on this homepage template, you know, you can change the pictures and stuff. That's not, these are placeholders. But you notice that there's a welcome here and getting started. And I'm sure many of you have that too. But getting started, where students have a roadmap that they follow. And then quick access. I didn't quite get the whole picture here, but that's a link to modules, a link to discussions, so that instead of going into modules and searching for the page and going to the discussion, they can go right there. You know, they can get just directly. And yes, you can take parts of the template. That's what they're for, is to edit, throw out what you don't when you move them into your house, and keep what you want to modify the other things. So here's just more of a close-up of the getting started. Again, these templates are very helpful because then each week or each module, it's the same type of roadmap. Here are the objectives for this chunk. Here are the activities we're going to do to get to the final outcomes of this part of the course, and giving them the tools to succeed. For example, you're going to be using Excel for this assignment, or you need to use Excel to meet the objective. So maybe giving supportive videos or documentation about how to use Excel instead of assuming they all know how to use it. So things like that. And your peers are fantastic as discipline experts to explore these options with. I want to make sure that I share with you the good practices in undergraduate education. These are the 7 principles by Chickering and Gamson, 1987. And then Chickering and Ehrman, 1996 is when they applied them to online instruction. But these have been around for a long time, and they're still referred to in evidence-based learning and research because, well, they're effective. So these practices, you can read them here for yourself. And while these are not specific prescriptions for how to do something, you can think about them and what would work for you. Each of you has your own personality, your own teaching presence that will foster your own community. So what works for me in that, middle educational experience won't work for you. For some people, I imagine, but we're not duplicates of each other. That's what makes our instruction so special, is the expertise and the personality. He has a doggy door to go outside, Steve. He's fine. They're actually fighting over a yak bone. They have a different language they speak when they're doing that. In any case, when you're looking at these principles and you don't feel that you harness these as much as you'd like to, then we can examine, or you and your peers can examine each practice and see how you can implement that within your discipline. I'm gonna skip over that part. So in all of this and using the templates, it really is about communication, not assumptions. Having rubrics and encouraging students to ask questions. But we're not all just, I'm not a math instructor, so I'm not even close to that. But, even as a history instructor, there's other things to talk about that build that sense of community and engagement, while at the same time maintaining boundaries for privacy and security. And that is really important in the online environment. Yes, it is King Charles. You'll notice that I have a green screen up. You want to maintain your privacy with students, but you don't want to completely close up and only be the math instructor, only be the music instructor. I know Julie's not, so that's a poor example. But we're all human beings who are in teaching and learning together, and it's only through that genuine togetherness that teaching and learning has the best optimal environment to happen. And that's what we all want. That's why we're here, our purpose. So encourage students to ask questions, get their feedback too.
Jody, we're at 10 minutes left.
Thank you. And if anything that you walk away with here is to start early, set those communication practices in place, and then make sure to take advantage of opportunities to interact with your students and encourage them to interact with each other. A lot of questions can be answered by a peer before they get to you. And if you haven't had a chance to check out the virtual cafe, we set one up in the faculty hub, and there's a little icebreaker in there where we just ask you to choose an image or something that represents your persona or your life. No words, just picture. And we know that many of our students love communicating through GIFs and memes. And it brings delight, to see somebody use a King Charles barking for their joy is really fun. So teaching and learning online can be fun. So sorry. Work out any technical issues early. Yeah, I should have drugged him. Okay, so by encouraging questions too, I'd like to encourage you to have questions. I'm just gonna go through this stuff, sorry. Oh my goodness sakes. Do you have any questions around the areas of the 7 principles or anything else about creating a community in the classroom, virtual classroom? There's so many messages in the chat. You guys are just a wealth of information. And as I said, we're gonna keep the chat and we're gonna read through, and if there's any particular workshops that we can do later, get together with your discipline peers and we can help you out and have fun doing so, right? Oh, these are great messages. Anybody have burning questions? Yes, she's also a Cavalier. She's this Maggie. You're welcome. Thanks, Carl. Yeah, if you're done, you've got your fill and you're motivated to go, please do have a great day, and we're here for you. Okay, feel free to reach out to any of our facilitators, go to the faculty hub, lots of resources, but not too much in the hub. Thank you. Oh, thank you, everyone.
Thank you again, Judy. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, you. No kidding.
Jody, I did have a question.
Okay.
I don't know
yeah.
if this is a good place to ask it.
Oh,
here,
please.
Let me stand up here. Okay. We do 3 discussions in our class.
Yeah.
Because we have 3 units, the module's broken into 3 units. But one semester we had a cafe, and I just didn't know if it was too many discussions going on at once, or if you have any advice about that. I didn't want to distract them. And then I saw, I think in the last class, about breaking the discussion into small groups. Maybe that would help. I just want to get the students engaged, and I don't want to spread it out so much that, they're going here to talk about that and going here to talk about that, and then they don't do anything. They don't talk about anything then.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, I think it was in the 11 o'clock session that, I was referring to how discussions can be a monologue, right, with very little interaction. And so how do we move, discussion into discourse, right, where they're talking about the subject, not just, oh yeah, I agree. Oh no, yeah, that's great. You guys all do those.
Yeah.
So, setting expectations with a rubric is really helpful. Even, giving an example of what a good response is. For mine in history, again, may not work for you, but I always made them have at least one reference. And then a certain word count, those kinds of things. But then it was really about the content. But what I would recommend for you, Lorraine, is ask your students. Ask them, do you enjoy the discussions? Is there a different format that you think would work better? And don't be afraid to ask them, because trusting your students, to ask them what is working and what isn't, you will be surprised at how much they'll say what is working. Okay. It's really a great thing to do. It's hard. It's hard to let go a little bit, but it really is very rewarding. And you shouldn't have to wait till an evaluation to get that feedback. They'll appreciate it.
Yeah.
Jody?
Yes.
Jody?
Yes, Patricia.
Yeah, I've had this trouble where my screen was like shaking, and then I could not access the chat, or I don't know what's going on. Like there's a gray section at the bottom of my screen. I don't know if it's coming from Zoom or my connection. I have no ideas.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's all really clear here, Patricia. I'd have to assume that that you're right, a connection. Did you log out and then log back in?
No, because I don't want to. I don't want to.
So you don't trust it?
No, I don't.
Well, you should, and I'll even wait for you, Patricia. I'll wait for you to log out and try to log back in, and have faith it will work. And if it doesn't, then we could do some other troubleshooting.
I did that this morning already once, and it had never done it. Yeah.
Are you using a particular browser?
No, it's always the same one. It's Microsoft Edge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that what you guys use? Carolyn, do you use Edge for Zoom?
Sorry, no, I don't. No.
What do you use?
Firefox and Chrome.
Yeah, I use Chrome too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be worth trying a different browser, Patricia. And if it keeps happening for Zoom and Tech Connect, they actually have a help desk 24/7, Zen desk that can help you out with those technical glitches. It's good to know that too, in case your students have those issues, which it happens.
Unfortunately, Edge is the buggiest browser.
Oh, there you go. So yeah, try it out. You remember when we used to give examples, maybe some of you, I'm dating myself, where we would tell our students that, if your printer's gonna break or run out of ink, it's gonna be at 11 o'clock at night, the night before your paper's due. Think about all the things that can go wrong now. like ink is like the least of their problems right now.
Okay, I'll check. I'll go out and see.
Okay.
But don't move away, Jody.
I'll stay right here. So were there specific questions everybody was asking about the 10-10-10 communication, right? Jason, was that a lot of questions?
Yeah, so there's just people asking where you can find the information, and you can find the interest form for 10-10-10 within the Faculty Support Hub on Canvas. Everyone here should already be enrolled in it. You'll see it on the homepage. There's a gray icon that says what's new. The link for the 10-10-10 form is going to be right there.
Yeah, and the first one we're starting is January 19th. We only expect it to take 10 to 12 hours. Even for folks who had a hard time going through the first step, think about all the knowledge you have now about using Canvas and Zoom. And this is really focused on creating communication strategy and a homepage. So we don't anticipate it will take you long, but the investment of time will absolutely help you. So if the 19th doesn't work for you, on the interest form, you can check if February would be better or March, but we'll have opportunities all throughout the semester. And then into sections 3 and 4 also. So we're here. Anyone else? Burning question? While we're all waiting for Patricia, see if she makes it back.
I'm back, but my picture is gone now.
Oh no. Do you have your video camera on? Your
But I don't want the video, but before that there was my picture on there.
Yes, I did see that.
Okay, well.
I'm thinking it's a Zoom setting. Jason, what's your diagnosis?
If it took her picture away, I'm wondering if it just logged her out of her account.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that would be my guess. Yeah, I would just go onto Zoom. Probably restart your computer. A good computer restart usually fixes everything. Restart your computer. I would just go to zoom.us, sign into your account, and then try setting up for a meeting.
I don't need to do that now. Because
okay. All right. Anyone else?
Jody. I don't want Jody to wait forever hugging her dog there.
I will though, I'll wait as long as it takes.
All right, I'll fix it somehow.
Okay, well, let us know if you need help with that, Patricia, and we'll direct you in the right way.
Yep, I know you have my email, so.
Yeah. I do.
All right, well, with that, I'm gonna wish you all a very happy start of the semester. And please check back regular in the hub, because we have a lot of great things planned for you in small scaffolded chunks. Thank you. Bye, Jason. Bye, Carolyn. Talk to you.